for joining, everybody. I won't get started quite yet, but I did want to say hello. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I invite you all to, if you feel like it, turn your cameras on. So this is a unique presentation in that it's set up on Zoom. So even though I recognize some of your names, many of you I don't know, you're invited to have your cameras on. You are invited to have them off. It's your decision. I am excited to see you all arriving here for another Boston Design Week presentation. I am Davis Harte, and this is Play and Health in Design, which the subtitle is Ludic Thinking to Facilitate Wellbeing. And I will share my screen here in a moment and get started as people come on board. We have a very fun hour planned. We might wrap up a little early. We'll see how things go. If you'd like to also, I invite you to type in the chat, hello, message your reactions or what's happening or where you're located or any of that sort of interactive nature, because this isn't a webinar with the one-sided tunnel shouting quite as much. You're that, so I'm going to start sharing my screen and just go ahead and get my presentation rolling so we can get started. First, you'll see my moon phases. All right, to the best of my knowledge, you can see just my slide, hopefully, correct?
Yep, we can see it.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Okay, so like I said, I'm Davis Harte, and we are going to launch this, when I said playful lecture, I didn't quite know what I had in mind, but I've got a few things woven into this that might be a little different than your typical being lectured at experience. I was asked to present on play and health and design because somebody had caught wind that I was teaching a course at the BAC. And so that is exactly what I did. I said, sure, that sounds like a great idea. And here's a couple of examples we'll get into further along in the presentation to see what my students have been up to. But first, a little smidge about myself. This is me playing. I was working. I couldn't tell the difference, but was with students at an intensive experience in August of 2019. This is probably the highlight of the Seaport area, in my opinion, in Boston. The ICA, and in front of the ICA are these intentional toys for people to sit upon. The person wheeling them out each morning would get on it each morning and rotate himself around. You can see, your mind fills in the blank how that would work. So that picture was taken by a student of mine, Amira Yancey. I went to Boston College for my bachelor's degree in early childhood education. I love children, and I thought, well, there's kids everywhere. So even if I do become a globetrotter, I'll have kids to teach. Luckily, I also did a child and society degree, which I found to be just fascinating, with sociology, psychology, and anthropology woven through the program. After teaching for about 10 years, I wanted to do something with spatial design. So I went back to school and got my master's degree and then my PhD, both in design with health related focus. So now I'm going to launch you into a quick activity for yourselves to let me know where you are. Clearly, you could just type it in the chat, but if you just go to this pollev.com / J Davis Harte 591, we'll try it out. I haven't done a live poll before. This is an experiment. I'm taking a risk, but I figured let's just give it a try to pop in and populate this map a little bit. You don't have to do it this moment. It'll still be available to do. That's pollev.com / JDAVISHARTE 591. Where in the physical world are you? Although I grew up in the New England, Connecticut, Boston area, I've lived in Oregon for 20 years. So I do branch the country. So let's skip along there and we'll see as we populate. We've got somebody from Oregon, somebody from the mid-Atlantic area, perhaps, Ohio. I'm not doing international. I'm not surprised there's a few folks from Boston. That's very encouraging. So I'm going to move on to another submission area. You can pop in with even with your phone. You don't have to do it from the computer. This is just a curiosity about who you are. What's your current work, your interest? What brought you here today? This is something that I can visit back later as you pop them in and we can see where everybody is from. And I can't help but love word clouds. Before I was an academic, I was a poet and a word person. So I love to see how words take shape and design creations around, around the place. What are we doing with our thoughts? How do our thoughts become words? And how do they, look at how cool that looks. That's so fun. Fantastic. Oh, illustrators, evidence-based design, love it. Trauma-informed, right on. Play, college, it's so interwoven. An overarching point of my talk is it's not just about children playing, so they are a great focus for us, and they're the ones who are having the most issues with lack of play, really, because it affects who they become as adults. So as we move forward with those answers, this is the overview of our talk today. I am going to ask you, if your camera's on, all the better for you, get a major gold star from me, but we're going to just do a little warm up, icebreaker, and dance for a moment. And then after that, I'll just do a little overview. But this is a song I find very encouraging. So I'm going to dance. This is the Liz Gilbert sort of experience. So Nakamura, he's with his 100-year-old grandma in this video. She's out playing the whole day. I'm on my way, get on my way. I'm running late, what can I say? I heard you died twice. Once when they bury you in the grave, and the second time is the last time that somebody mentions your name. So when I leave here on this earth, did I take more than I gave? Did I look out for the people, or did I do it all for fame? Legend is Exodus, searching for euphoria, trudging through the mud to find the present, no ignoring. I got 20,000 deep off in the street like we some warriors. My mama told me never bow your head. I feel glorious, glorious, got a chance to start again. I was born for this, it's who I am, not gonna forget. I made it through the darkest part of the night, and now I see the sunrise. Now I feel glorious, glorious, I feel glorious, glorious. Okay, thank you so much for entertaining me. I saw Liz Gilbert do that in front of a huge auditorium over a video, and I was so impressed with her courage. And that's the way I can get my heart rate up in a positive way, stress relieving way. So this is my overview of what we're going to cover today. You'll have another opportunity at the end of the talk if you didn't feel like you got quite enough dancing in. We're going to look at what is play. We're going to talk about what is health and how the BAC students' work is intersecting play and health and design, and why this is so crucial for design spaces. And I have a challenge for Boston at the very end. Let's see if I can center myself there. Now, first, I noticed something interesting. There was a bit of a game that happened just as I was starting to promote this talk, in that there was a little bit of the telephone game, the operator game, where you say something and it says person to person and it changes what your intention was at the beginning. So the word ludic was the word I had put in the title. But if you look at any of the marketing material, you'll see the word lucid. They corrected my mistake for me because it wasn't a word that they knew, I think, is what happened. So I like lucid. Let's see, lucid thinking to facilitate well-being. That works as well. Lucid means expressed clearly, easy to understand. So I certainly hope my talk is lucid, but I did intend to use the word ludic, which, as you can see here, it's defined as an adjective that's showing spontaneous and undirected playfulness. And it comes from the work of Johann Huizinga, who wrote Homo, ludens, the study of play element in culture. He's a Dutch cultural historian. So this is a bit of my theoretical underpinnings of the work that I do. In addition to that, we know the work of Einstein, who says imagination is the language of the soul. When a young child was able to talk to him and ask his opinions about, well, what should I do to be as smart as you, Einstein? He said, just read fairy tales. Just read more fairy tales if you want to be smarter than me, because he knew that imagination was the critical element. Now, my place at the BAC is as the director of the Design for Human Health program, which is an online master's program in design studies. And I created this theoretical conceptual bubble diagram to show how we're doing similar to my early degree in in society, sociology, psychology, and biological and physical. Where those places overlap, the built environment covers all of this. And working with the overarching mission of the BAC is to provide excellent design education emerging from practice and accessible to diverse communities. I'm so grateful every day that I get to do the work that I do, working in Design for Human Health, because I have the most amazing students who understand that thinking along this new way of designing for people's experiences is critical. So when we can meet in Boston, this is what we look like. At least this was 2 years ago, when we could meet in person over in Copley Square area. The 4 of my 5 graduating seniors are in this picture, and we go and we learn how to learn, and we learn how to see, and we learn how to experience spaces. The demonstration of communicating your ideas and making ethnographic observations is key to understanding the lived experience. You cannot tell somebody else what their experience is. It's the meaning comes from within. So we have a lot of fun at our 1 week intensive, being able to explore Boston, learn from each other, see what we might see. This was in front of the Prudential Center. I knew I was going to teach a play and health course at some point in time. So I was taking pictures of people playing the beanbag toss game that has a special name. So that's them on their lunch break and interacting in a way that's spontaneous and unplanned. Cornhole, thank you. Absolutely. Now, this is at the one end of the green necklace in Chinatown, where they had put it up as a temporary pop-up art piece to play with, and kids play on it, and it's in an area where also adults can lounge and do their gathering. And as far as I know, it became something that was decided to stay permanently. There's another example of the sorts of things we see when we're out and about traveling in Boston. And the Greenway Carousel is a place that the students visited last summer during the intensive via a virtual trip. The carousel is designed to be accessible to individuals with physical, cognitive, and sensory abilities or disabilities. And as I said, this play is not exclusively a child experience. It's meant to be for all ages. Have a look at what this course I taught was about, because that's how we get a little more focused on the experience of play and health in designed environments. It was an 8-week course, 1.5 credits. I found in writing it that it could be a degree. It could be, as most of the things in the Design for Human Health program feel like to me, it could be multiple degrees or decades of exploration and research, because it's there's, as soon as you uncover some truth about something, you realize there's more questions. And so that's what we did. We looked at things that inhibited play. What does curiosity do for us? How does risk taking take part in our experience across the lifespan? We used case studies and peer-reviewed research and evidence along those lines. The students practiced design thinking and reflecting on what they saw and what they were dreaming into being as designers were thinking about what we want to see happen. I have another moment to say, what do you want to make happen? If you could type in here, you can just text 37607 with J Davis Harte 591, or do that same pollev.com/J Davis Harte at 591, and we can have an interactive polling. How would you define play? You can answer more than once, because one word might not cut it, but just take a chance and type in something that you think, this might get at what is play. First, it doesn't seem like it's that definable, does it? It seems like, oh, it's when I go to a soccer game, that's play, or when I read to myself, I feel like I'm relaxing, and that's playful. There's so many different activities that it could be, but what about the essence of play? Take away the activity idea, but what's the mindset, or what's the feeling you want to feel when you want to play? I see some great answers coming up. Improvisation, role-playing, learning, creative, silly, joyful. Absolutely. Y'all are sharp as tacks. Something about the word cloud. There's no repeating words so far. Everybody's got a different sense of what play might be. Enjoyment, connecting, embodiment, absolutely. There's no right or wrong answer as it comes to be. Thank you for answering those, and you can go back and do that more later. Well, I look to the work of a couple of good scholars to help me define what play is. One is Stuart Brown, and he has a great book. I did not put it in the slideshow, so I'll hold up his book here. Play, How It Shapes the Brain, Opens the Imagination, and Invigorates the Soul. Really great writing. He's sharp as a tack himself. And I'll scooch us along to the next slide so we can get a little more, even more specific. Being a BC alum, when I heard about the work of Dr. Peter Gray, I thought, oh, this is fantastic. He is such a smart man. He looks with an evolutionary lens on psychology and children's play and from an evolutionary perspective. I had the great good fortune to hear him speak at a showing at the Boston Children's Museum one summer a couple of years ago. And what we can agree upon the characteristics of human play. This helps us a little bit to give some definitions. Play is self-chosen and self-directed. Play is intrinsically motivated. The means are more valued than the ends. It's not about the product necessarily or about the outcome. It's about the experience. there's something about play. It's guided by mental rules, but the rules leave room for creativity. So you can imagine a group of children making up the rules as they're playing a game, and they're deciding they need to shift it. There's a pirouette that needs to happen. It's not going the way they thought it would. So the rules leave room for that creativity to expand and change. It's just a beautiful thing. Of course, play is imaginative, back to our Einstein. And play is conducted in an alert and active, but relatively non-stressed frame of mind. So this is a very brief video, only 2 minutes, a trailer for Chasing Childhood. And it's gonna help us see the lack of play, the deficit that we're having. It's gonna start to amplify why the lack of play is a problem.
How many of you come home from school and run outside and play?
Mondays I have hip hop.
Tuesdays I have this filming thing,
Basketball practice,
theater,
French
stop
tutor,
motion,
filmmaking,
Zen design. Sounds like everyone's exhausted.
Yes.
Childhood today is full of stuff that kids have to accomplish. I don't have time to sit, I don't have time to think.
I want to go above and beyond. They're pushing us to be the best we can.
For the first time, we have created a world in which we are negating childhood.
How have we come to this point?
I walked to school at age 5. When you got to the corner, the crossing guard was a 10-year-old. Our younger son started asking if we would let him find his own way home on the subway. 2 days later, I was on the Today Show being grilled.
The worst mother in the world.
Crime is the lowest it's been for decades. Where did all this fear come from?
My mom always tried really hard to be a good parent. When Savannah was little, I don't think she could take 2 steps without us saying, be careful. I raised my kids in a culture that's very directed. We just kept pushing. I was crying every night because if something was wrong, then something was wrong with me.
All right, is she ready?
When you mortgage your kid's childhood, it's a debt that can never be repaid.
Play is practice in the whole range of skills that they need to become effective adults.
Let's do it again. That was so fun.
One of the things that's stopping parents from sending kids outside is the fear of getting arrested. Pass this law and reassure parents that we will not criminalize them for knowing when their kids are ready for some independence.
I feel like my kids missed out on something that kids shouldn't miss out on.
Get out, have fun.
What I really am trying to do is get parents to let go a little. All the worry in the world doesn't prevent death. It prevents life.
I think they said it better than I could. But let me get into the better angle here. Why is play beneficial to children and therefore to adults? The Genius of Play website has this incredible way of accessing research. Each of these images shows learn to understand the real world, and then there's a citation at the bottom. So it shows the evidence. Now, if we think about all of these various benefits that play does for us, it helps us become more creative, better language, sense of curiosity, problem solving, stress reduction. The list goes on and on of the benefits of why play is so essential. The level of design that can come in and support that, it's beyond our imagination. It's exactly as we want it to be. I mean, it could be any number of things. Here's another way of thinking about how fundamental play is in encouraging outdoor play and encouraging movement play. I'm very fortunate that I live in a town where my daughter, who's 11, can leave and roam around a bit and come back and explore and figure out ways to play. But we are, in my family, I cannot say our screen time is at the little pointy end of that pyramid. It's an opposite food pyramid. We want to minimize the amount of passive, receptive taking on board and increase the amount of building, crafting, designing, and being the master of their own hands. Now we're going to just jump over into a little bit of what I love, the research here. Bergen wrote an article bringing forth this idea of the play deficit in, I believe it was this article came out in 2018, and there's conversations around prescribing play for play-deprived children. It's becoming quite, I'm not about calling out the fear of things. I'm more about let's support what we can. But the idea of using true toys, the child center play with true toys such as blocks and dolls, and that may have come about from the work of Nicholson in 1971. He wrote an article about the theory of loose parts. This is this fundamental decision, this our overarching cultural message that the planning, designing, and building of any part of the environment is so difficult and so special that only the gifted few can properly solve environmental problems. The result is that the rest of the community has been deprived of a crucial part of their lives and lifestyle, meaning loose parts are something that will allow us some autonomy and ability to feel that we can create our own realities. It's important that we take this seriously, even though it's a topic on play, because the more that we can, the more that we know our lives will be healthier and happier. And in the United Nations, they're all over this. They said, look, there's this Article 31, Conventions on the Rights of the Child, which children don't have a lot of voice, so we can be advocates for them. I'm going to go ahead and play this for you. You can do a little dancing, really, if you feel like it, in your seat even. Imagine dragons.
Think of play as being important for children's physical activity and physical growth and development. And that's certainly true. But it's equally important for children's mental development, social relations, and their emotional development. Play is the primary means by which young children explore, learn about the world and themselves. We needed this general comment to be written because there's a tendency for many people in the world to think that play is optional, not fundamental. Play is absolutely fundamental to children's physical, social, mental, and emotional development.
Such a lovely video. That's from made by IPA, the IPAworld.org Institute for, oh gosh, it's escaped me the name of it, sorry. You'll see it again at the end. Okay, this is my last polling question for you. Now we're folding in health. Also, easy word to define. It just means I feel good, right? Well, just pop in some words. There's not a limit to how many times you can enter what your idea is. What is health? You can text it to 37607. Start with my name, J Davis Harte, 591, and that's Harte on the end, or pollev.com/J Davis Harte 591. Now, clearly, we're not going to actually come up with an answer and say that's it, because again, this could be an entire dissertation, how to define health. The World Health Organization is well funded and well resourced to try to figure out what is health. For me, I factor in the individual's own meaning and own perception. When I know how I feel and I'm not concentrating on my health, that means I'm thriving and I'm well. I can see some great answers coming in here: happiness, well-being, peace. Yes, you don't feel fraught with worry because you know all is well. Room and growth also matter a lot. Those are fantastic. Now, I have 3 slides that I need to introduce, even though they're not specifically player health, but I do a lot of work with trauma-informed design. So in case this is not something that's familiar to you already, the ACE study was seminal by Folletti and forgot his co-author's name, from the 80s, and it's adverse childhood experiences. So this is the not play section of the story. ACEs fall into 3 broad categories: either abuse, neglect, or household dysfunction. The prevalence is, if we were all to take our own ACE scores amongst us, out of a 1 to 10 is the range when you take an ACE test. I would say every single one of us have at least a 1, if not a 2 or a 3. I mean, we grew up in families that had divorce or abuse situations in some way or another, perhaps just dysfunctions. There's also environmental issues that impact people's experiences. Now, the reason this is important is because there are incredible long-term consequences to having ACE experiences if they're not interrupted, or they're not something that are prevented or shifted from. They can lead to any number of physical and mental health and behavioral issues. You can see the logos here. It's just, I don't want to focus on them. I think we all are aware of the types of problems our society is facing. So knowing the ACE scores, this is where I say, let's just get bold. Let's feel like we are capable of designing in solutions that help people foster resilience and self-regulation skills. This is an article that a student of mine shared with me yesterday. And it took place in, I think, 2003. A landscape architect who felt like, how could she help this tsunami ravaged land in Thailand? What could she do? She's not a first responder. Well, a few months later, she saw a call for landscape architects to go and help design, and she, in a participatory way, designed with these children. The article is beautiful. It's 12 pages long, and it's full of images of this participatory nature of building healing spaces for these kids in Thailand. Thank you, Meg, for sharing that. Speaking of students, we're going to really focus on their work for the next few minutes. I have a range of student work to share with you. The first is a distance design for human health master's student, Laura Watts, who has been working on her thesis solidly for a year, thinking about it the year before that, and the courses she took were feeding into this work. She, at a certain point, became just full of brick wall. She didn't know how to proceed with her work. she's very happy for me to share this story with you. I have everybody's permission to share their work, by the way. Laura, at one point during her thesis presentation last week, said, well, she'd been talking about going back to the past, the child, thinking of what in her childhood felt good. Going back to painting, it broke me out of that barrier. I got back in touch again with what made me happy and why I started doing this thesis in the first place. She did watercolor beautiful images throughout her whole thesis, and it was that decision in herself that I'm going to just have to play. I can't work any harder to make this thesis happen. I'm stuck. I can't figure out the route forward. So luckily she had support and she had permission to just pick up the watercolors. And for her, that level of play, something shifted in her. And she has come up with a remarkable thesis because she was able to integrate that in and shift the way her brain was working. The course I referred to at the beginning of this talk, the elective course, I had students come up with a conceptual play space. I wanted them to define what was it that they found most important to highlight in a space like this. This is the work of Rowan Greenlaw, who is a MArch student. And he is showing that he has spaces for people to his many precedent images in his work that he presented to me. These are just rough conceptual ideas, but there's an area for resting and to be part of the scene and part of what's happening, but on the edges of it. So if somebody's feeling overwrought, they can take a break. There's areas for active physical skating on purpose, skate benches. How do we balance the needs of teens who need to play with 2-year-olds that need to play with
I'm on top of the world. Hey.
Want to play. It's a tricky balance, isn't it? It's hard to always figure out how to get the right needs for everybody, but thinking through the lens of how healthy it is for folks, this was a great example. Another student who's another Design for Human Health student, Eve Olive, she's thinking a lot about more urban scale play opportunities. She's come up with this website as her final deliverable, and she's calling it MAPS, which has to do with modular units. So depending on the scale of the local authorities and the council and what have you, can they do a one section square, or can they do, a whole city block? She was motivated by her childhood in New York City, where there's vacant lots, and that was a place the kids would play. There's a way to measure what are these different variables that are coming to play in a space like this. Another student from the Play and Health elective, Molly Boudreau, is a distance MArch student. She's about 2 hours to the east of me. I'm in Corvallis. But she and I can both easily work in Boston. We have this new way of working together, don't we, with the internet. In participation with another project she had going on with sustainable urban futures, and the threat of sea level rise is very real that we need to address. We can understand the problem and then from there move towards solutions. She's plotted out all of the different parks and playgrounds in the North End. And what she specifically had in mind was creating opportunities for this movement to be a kinetic park, something that equipment would be able to produce wattage. Kids using their kids' natural energies would yield this incredible gain to illuminate these beautiful kinetic park canopy lights. Just incredible how much play I believe is essential to weave into all of our lives daily. I challenge each of you to find something. This is why we dance at the beginning of a lecture when Davis is at the helm, because if we don't start to play ourselves and figure out a way to feel a bit better, we're not going to find the solutions. We're going to stay stuck in the problems. Meg Jabali, she's the one who shared that article with me about the folks in Thailand. She's very focused on play as a mom like myself. She has two kids. She lives in Phoenix and is a very curated community area. In the very front of this talk, there's a picture of her interviewing her son. She's using a stuffed snake as the microphone, and he's standing on the castle wall. So here's her image of what it would be like. She is doing co-participatory, and she gets the inspiration from a resource we visited in the course out of Boulder. Beautiful work by Maya Mitzer, a woman who's just doing fantastic child-friendly city work in Boulder, Colorado. This is Meg's vision for her invitations to play throughout her gated neighborhood community. There's an unused area by the pool where she could easily imagine teens setting up a space to do after school work together, to have a hangout place to go and talk. The teens are often under designed for, and their needs are greater for play than ever. Just a few weeks ago, I was at a playground with my 11-year-old, and 2 teenage girls were playing, and we were doing our little design commenting the whole time, watching how they were playing, and my daughter was saying, "Mom, they're using words they shouldn't be. Don't they know there's little kids around?" It was a very conflict type experience to have this interaction together with them. But I was just so happy that they were out playing. These 2 girls were 14, 15 years old coming down the slides, and it's just too big for it, but they didn't care. It was lovely to see. Another thesis student, this is not the elective course. This is Amira's big project. She came into the program knowing I'm going to work on sensory conscious design in playgrounds, and I just applauded her regularly for being so focused on a specific topic that she could really expand on. She comes to the Design for Human Health program with a background in psychology, and so understands and works with kids with sensory processing disorders who she feels are underrepresented in playgrounds that are inclusive playgrounds. They might be inclusive for physical abilities or disabilities, but the sensory integration is not factored in. So she's taken this precedence model, intellectual precedence from Winnie Dunn's sensory processing model. Very, very interesting, because some kids are going to actively seek solutions to help themselves if they're feeling overstimulated, whereas others are going to be very passive about it. Some kids are sensory seekers and need more sensory stimulation. And again, when I say kids, I mean adults too. We all have this range. Some of us need more proprioceptive vestibular stimulation. We need to get up and move and shake ourselves, or be on swings, or something that feels regenerative, whereas others are easily overwhelmed. So she's got some excellent examples of how she would better improve on playground spaces around her area. For instance, these musical instruments should be farther away from the areas where it's meant to be a restful place. Somebody is mentioning Margaret Mayhew in New Zealand. I'm not sure if that's the author, Margaret Mayhew. She's a famous New Zealand author whose work I love, being married to a Kiwi. And here's more of Amira's precedence examples. This playground, West Fork Playground, was designed by people who understood sensory needs. Amira still had some critical offerings to suggest that, this rainbow maze, the visual stimulation, there's tactile experiences that the children can have inside of the maze. The musical instruments are such that they could easily be even felt by people who don't have visual abilities. However, the ability to be near all of this play and activity, yet protected in a way from it with a little alcove, or sometimes tunnels are put in places that allow for taking a break without leaving, without being disassociated from the other activity. You can be an observer from the edges. Just fantastic ideas. And so she, here in the top corner, is using the Winnie Dunn model to show how different parts of the playgrounds are meeting the needs or not meeting the needs. Now, there's, as I said at the beginning, the resources for play and people doing work on this, it's much more than this. I couldn't fit everybody on. The International Play Association made the second video we watched. Let Grow is a great organization. The Alliance for Self-Directed Education. My daughter goes to a public school. I have great Zoom connection today because she is physically at the school now for the first time this week. So she's not on her school in her bedroom on the iPad, and I'm really happy about that for this talk, because otherwise I would have had some stagnation. She and myself and her dad, we're creating a self-directed education in addition to going to school. Meaning, I'm not expecting school to do everything for her. We create opportunities for her to play as much as we can. The Genius of Play is an organization that had all that list of the benefits of play happening. This is Peter Gray. Talk about putting his academic scholarly work right into the hands of the users, right from Psychology Today. He has regular postings called Freedom to Learn. He's just a real guru in this field, so to speak. And Dr. Roger Hart also, who we saw in the video, is the director of the Children's Environments Research Group. I got to spend some time with him in New York City when I went to an EDRA conference for the 50th EDRA. And he was just as lovely in person as he seemed. So there's folks all over the world working on how to create spaces for play and making spaces better for people to find connection with each other, because isn't that the goal of playing, is to find some connection and community. I do have, it's an unofficial challenge to Boston, because if we don't hear it from folks now and again, how are we going to rise to that level? But if we go to childfriendlycities.org here, there are ways to make a city child-friendly cities. And I am of the belief that the better we take care of our very most vulnerable person, then the better we will all be across the board, hands down. We all are well-versed these days and getting more aware of the high level of needs from physical, from the mental, from emotional places. We have honestly faced a life-threatening situation. So it's okay to acknowledge that and to admit that this is hard. And, if we're not feeling threatened and having somewhat of a traumatic experience about living through a pandemic, then I'm not sure what will. But we can intentionally shape our future moving forward. I want to give the example of the Reggio Emilia school approach. It's a city in Italy. I hope to visit there someday. But after World War II, the town of Reggio Emilia was flattened. It was gone. And the folks there thought, well, if we're going to rebuild it, how do we want our city to look? And how do we want our town to be? And how do we want our kids to be? And they came up with the most magnificent approach for educating their young people. There's project play work that the kids can immerse into and stay engaged with as long as they want. They don't have to artificially end that time period when it's time to move on to math. They can work on their project. The teachers and adults are there to help facilitate and to guide and do the tricky stuff. If the kid isn't physically, their fine motor skills aren't quite there yet, the adult will do that and help them, because it's the kids' ideas they want to see make happen. It's one of my favorite educational approaches, the Reggio Emilia approach, in building a lot out of nothing, so to speak. So it's not something out of nothing. This is part of the goal of design, and to practice letting our imaginations just be risky and free. And it's not about hazards and danger. It's about safe risk-taking, curiosity that leads us interesting places. I love the idea of giving everybody back 10 minutes of their lives so that they can play and relax. And the easiest thing to do if you're feeling really tense is just shake your own arms, and this helps relieve some of the neurohormonal buildup that you have from the day. So I'm so pleased everybody's here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to put this little slide up here with some more work, and I'm happy to chat with folks, but I am going to play some more music. This is a song by Sue Lee. She is South Korean, and she's done a bunch of traveling, and she's recording her own. I mean, it's just beautiful. It's just, we gotta just embrace who we are, and everybody's doing really, really well. So I'm so proud of you all, and I'm glad you were here, and I'm really am open to more conversation and connection. So I want to thank the Boston Design Week and Karen Nelson for connecting me to the BDW. This is my daughter about 6 years ago. She saw that picture and was like, Mom, that's from so long ago. I was so little. Yes, Annie, but you're in front of a built fort made out of sticks. Like, come on, that's pretty awesome. So thank you for everybody for being here. And I'll have the outro with some Sue Lee. She's got some subtitles in her video you might find appealing to watch while you're listening.
Maybe I'm a bit dumb. Got a lot of questions that I don't know the answers to. I don't know who to ask. Even Mr. Google's like, bro, you need to figure this out on your own. On my own, yeah, on your own. Am I really alone? All alone, I'm alone. I don't know if I'm doing it right, doing it wrong. Is there something wrong with this way I'm moving on? What's going on? Are you alright? I said fine, but I'm dead in real life, so I guess I'll just dance. So I guess I'll just dance. So I guess I really can't breathe. Wish I could have poised like James Bond, and I can't even breathe. Right, I'm gonna be strong. Hold your head up high and see if you can figure it out on your own. On my own, yeah, on your own. Am I really alone? All alone, I'm alone. I don't know if I'm doing it right, doing it wrong. Is there something wrong with this way I'm moving on? What's going on? Are you alright? It's fine, but I'm dead in real life. But I'm dead in real life, in real life. Doing it right, doing it wrong. Is there something wrong with this way I'm moving on? What's going on? Are you alright? It's fine, but I'm dead in real life. So I guess I'll just dance. So I guess I'll just dance. So I guess I'll just dance. I'll just dance. I'll just dance, dance, dance. I'll just dance. Hell yeah, oh, I'll just dance.
Thank you, everybody. Go feed your soul.
Hey, Davis.
Yes.
I have a friend, former colleague from Syracuse University that is focused on play and design. Cass Holman. I don't know if you've ever heard her name. So much of what you're talking about is so aligned with some of her research. I would love to put you guys in touch with one another.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Cass, what's the last name?
Cass Holman, Holman. She helped design some of the playgrounds on the skyline in New York City.
Oh, nice.
She's just a fun, playful person, and she was also featured on one of the movies and about design on Netflix. But anyhow, I didn't know if you had heard her name before, but you might be interested in some of the videos that she puts out teaching at RISD and this idea of play and playfulness.
Absolutely. Like I said, I try to not make excuses at the beginning, but there's just hundreds of great resources and architects and designers doing incredible play-based work, and just getting the spotlight on it for a little while and amplifying it is just that's fantastic. Get people's curiosity peaked so they can decide, yeah, I do want to focus on this, and it's not frivolous and it's not a luxury. It's absolutely integral to our health and well-being.
Absolutely. Well, I loved your presentation today.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay. See you later.
Bye. Take care.
I think it's amazing that play has so much research associated with it,
Right.
And I think it's, there's something kind of like counterintuitive about that. I mean, obviously, we need to understand how play affects us as social beings and individual beings and our sense of identity and all of that. I'm struck by the kind of serious work of research and then the notion of play. And I just think there's something wonderful to be
mind. It's a huge paradox. And gosh, I could just put aside all the other work I do that takes up all of my time and just focus on play. And I think, wait a minute, I have barely scratched the surface on play design research. There's so much there. I need a resource list and I need access to make it available and accessible. But disseminating this information is part of the trick of it all.
Right. And also thinking about how it affects, like, you talked about the student who went back to watercoloring or painting as a way to unlock the design block or mental block that was going on. And I think about how do or don't we use play at the college and graduate level to learn?
Yeah.
And when it is safe for students to really play in a self-directed way versus when it's like, well, the faculty member expects X from me, and I don't know how to get to X just through.
Right. Play for graduate design students is different than play for 2 and 5 and 8-year-olds. I mean, it's such a range but there's something about that intrinsicness of play that's essential. And the support that, yes, it's okay to take risks, and verbalizing what seems like it's assumed or implied, saying things like, there are many ways of knowing, and that's part of creating opportunities to show me what you know, but in a slightly different way, because the first way I had assigned didn't quite fit your way of knowing. And how can we collaborate on, go for it. I give you, here's the permission slip.
Right.
I just jumped to thinking about how play, what's going on neurobiologically.
Yeah.
What shifts in the hormonal system so that the adrenaline, the amygdala stops being hijacked. And you feel like you can build in a little bit of mental space so that the ideas can start flowing again. And playing with words and ideas is like, I will play all day. I'm not at work, you guys. And then I think, wait, I'm not swimming in the hammock. Like, you mean that kind of play? Or, right. And then, of course, there's the structured child's top-down adult directed play.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother, like the kids find little margins of play space on the edge of baseball practice.
Right. It's true. And what you can do while you're waiting to get up to bat and all of that.
Right. Yeah, fantastic. Well, that's excellent. It was very much
amazing ideas, resources, student work, all of it. It was really great.
You're welcome. Yeah, hopefully I did everybody justice.
I'm sure you did, really. I'm sure you're going to hear positive things from them.
Great. Well, thank you, Karen, for mentioning that you had the foresight to say, Davis, do a play.
I know you could do this. I knew you'd hit it out of the park, Davis. It's great. Be well.
Okay, I've got that on recording now, so
I'll let you go. Yeah, use that for your review. Bye.
Bye.